So if you want to really understand the soul of Osaka before you land for the 2027 sumo tournament, you have to completely forget the samurai.
Oh, absolutely. Just erase them from your mind.
Right. I mean, forget the stoic warriors, the quiet Zen gardens, that whole rigid feudal hierarchy we always associate with traditional Japan, because you are stepping into a city built by, well, basically aggressive, fast-talking merchants.
Yeah, merchants who literally invented modern finance while the rest of the world was, still trading physical bags of grain.
Mm.
It's a profound shift in perspective.
It really is.
When we picture historical Japan, our default is usually Edo, right?
Mhm.
Modern-day Tokyo.
Yeah.
And that was the seat of the shogun.
Right. Very strict martial law.
Exactly. Extreme discipline, political power. But Osaka, it operated on an entirely different frequency. It was the commercial engine. Status wasn't inherited through bloodlines or swords. It was negotiated over a ledger.
And that is the exact premise of our deep dive today. We're custom baiting this exploration for a very specific listener. You know who you are. You're packing your bags for a trip to Japan in March 2027. You're going to the Grand Sumo Tournament, and you challenged us to be your intelligent cinematic travel companions.
Which is a great challenge. We've got an incredibly robust stack of sources for this.
Yeah, we really dug in. You want us to bring the streets of Osaka to life before your boots even hit the pavement.
We're pulling from historical overviews spanning 1,600 years, detailed academic papers analyzing ancient city grids, firsthand wartime accounts, and deep cultural analyses of its food and theater.
So to make sense of this massive metropolis, we're going to use a framework that you actually requested. We're looking at Osaka through the lens of a massive open-world role-playing game.
It's surprisingly fitting. Cities of this scale function very much like complex game worlds.
Right, because the lore, the world building, the social mechanics here are like infinitely more complex than any fantasy game ever coded.
They really are. They're divided into zones with distinct cultures, underlying economic mechanics, and deep, often violent backstories.
So let's boot this up. Every good RPG starts with a spawn point, right? A starting in. A safe haven where you recover your health points, sort your inventory, plan out your quests.
And for this specific trip, your chosen starting in is Hotel Code Shinsaibashi,
Exactly.
specifically located at 11630 Higashi Shinsaibashi in the Chuo Ward. From a strategic standpoint, your choice of base camp is phenomenally calculated.
Let's break down why. Because staying at a Japanese business hotel, it isn't just about a cheap bed. It's about tapping into a highly specific philosophy.
It's all about targeted comfort.
Right. But first, let's talk fast travel mechanics. Hotel Code is exactly a 3-minute walk from Shinsaibashi Station on the Osaka Municipal Subway Mitaisuji line.
And we really cannot overstate the importance of the Mitaisuji line. It is the primary central artery of the entire city.
Yeah, I was reading about its construction in the 1930s in our sources. It wasn't just a utilitarian tunnel. It was designed as this subterranean grand boulevard.
Exactly, with these massive vaulted ceilings. It connects the major hubs, running directly north to south.
So you arrive at Shinosaka on the bullet train. You go through Umeda in the north, right down through Shinsaibashi, Namba, and Kennoji. Being 3 minutes from that line means the entire map is instantly unlocked.
But the inn itself, it serves a vital mechanical purpose too. We need to talk about HP recovery in a hyperdense urban environment.
Oh, for sure, because you're walking, what, 20,000 steps a day?
Easily.
Navigating sensory overload, eating massive meals, sitting at the sumo tournament. Physical recovery is paramount. It's not about sprawling luxury. It's engineered rest.
Right. Our sources detail the specific amenities at Hotel Code, and they are highly calculated, like the deployment of Simmons mattresses.
Which sounds like just a brand name drop, but it's not, right?
No, it represents a specific standard of coil tension designed for spinal alignment after heavy physical exertion. And then there are the nano air purifying systems in every room.
I thought that was just a standard hotel perk at first. But when you understand Osaka, it's critical gear.
Yeah, because Osaka is the kitchen of the nation. You are walking through clouds of grilled meat smoke, deep-fried oil, savory broths all day long.
And the nano system uses microscopic water particles to actively neutralize odors in the fabric. It's an environmental reset button for your room.
Plus the high-tech electric washlet toilets, the ultimate hallmark of Japanese hospitality engineering, and the free breakfast.
Yes, because in an RPG, you do not want to waste your first hour aimlessly searching for a health potion. You wake up, fuel your stamina meter at the inn, and hit the streets.
But The most important aspect of hotel code Shinsaibashi isn't even inside the building. It's the zone you're stepping into.
Right, you're staying in Higashi Shinsaibashi, which places you directly in the beating heart of Minami. Let's define the map for a second.
Sure. Minami literally translates to south. In the binary geography of central Osaka, you have Kita, the north, centered around Umeda.
And Kita today is polished. Corporate, glass skyscrapers, high-end department stores.
Right. And then you have Minami, the south. This encompasses Shinsaibashi, Dartenbori, and Namba.
And Minami is raw. It's loud. It's the historic, unvarnished center of the merchant class.
Yeah, but wait, we need to address something. We set up this premise that Osaka was ruled by merchants, not samurai.
Okay, yeah, let me push back on that narrative for a second, because during the Edo period, from 1603 to 1867, the Tokugawa shogunate had absolute iron-fisted control over the country.
They absolutely did.
They enforced a strict four-tiered class system, samurai at the top, farmers, artisans, and merchants at the absolute bottom. So how did the people legally at the bottom manage to effectively take over a city?
That is the great paradox of the Edo period. It comes down to the mechanics of economics versus ideology.
Okay, break that down.
The samurai class was rooted in a Confucian system that valued production. Farmers produced food, artisans produced goods. Merchants, in the shogunate's eyes, produced nothing.
Right, they just moved things around and profited off others.
Exactly. So they were considered morally inferior and given zero political power. But they had all the leverage.
Because the samurai were paid in rice, not cash.
Right. And as the Edo period progressed through 250 years of peace, the economy rapidly monetized. You can't buy a new kimono or repair your roof with sacks of grain.
You need silver and gold. Enter the Osaka merchants.
Precisely. The samurai had to ship their tax rice to Osaka, where merchant brokers stored it, sold it, and converted it to cash.
And over time, the samurai lords started taking out massive loans from these merchants against future tax yields.
Yeah, they became drowning in debt to the very people they considered socially beneath them.
To use our RPG skill tree metaphor, this is brilliant. The samurai in Edo were dumping all their skill points into strength and vitality. They were building for combat.
But in an era of enforced peace, the combat meta becomes entirely obsolete. You can't farm gold with a sword.
Meanwhile, the Osaka merchants were maxing out their intelligence and charisma stats.
Exactly. They developed an entirely different cultural operating system, which our sources identify as Kamigata culture.
And Kamigata culture was the total antithesis of Edo culture, right?
Completely. Samurai valued stoicism, rigid loyalty, a willingness to die for a cause. The Kamigata merchant valued human relationships, sharp negotiation, and smooth communication.
If a samurai's power came from the edge of his blade, a merchant's power came from his ledger and his ability to disarm a client with a smile.
So when you walk out of your hotel into Minami, you're stepping onto ground culturally engineered to facilitate commerce, hospitality, and entertainment.
But to really grasp the magnitude of this zone, we have to go way deeper into the lore, way before the samurai even existed.
We have to travel back over a millennium. Before Osaka was the neon merchant capital, it was the front door to the entire nation.
The geographic data in our sources is fascinating here. Over 1,000 years ago, the topography was drastically different.
Right. The Uwaimachi Plateau, which is basically a raised ridge running north to south, stuck out like a peninsula into a vast inland sea known as Kawachi Bay.
And this geological formation created a highly protected natural harbor. It was the perfect docking point for ships from the Asian mainland, specifically the Korean Peninsula and Tang Dynasty China.
It wasn't just a trading post. It was the hub for international diplomacy.
Which brings us to the Taika Reform in 645 AD. History books usually just drop that term and move on, but why does it matter to the dirt under your feet in Osaka?
Because the Taika Reform was a massive political centralization project. The imperial family wanted to establish a true centralized state modeled after China.
So they needed a capital that was politically secure and internationally accessible, and they chose the port.
They chose the Uwaimachi Plateau and built the Naniwa Palace in the mid-7th century. This was the first true city-scale imperial capital of Japan.
It's wild to think about. Before Kyoto, before Nara, Osaka was the center of the universe.
And we have incredible academic sources proving this. There's a paper by Takashi Sato analyzing the Naniwakyo capital area.
Oh, right. He uses GIS mapping and soil displacement analysis to reverse engineer how the ancient city was built.
Yeah, Sato's methodology gives us a ground-up view. By analyzing the sheer volume of artificial landfill required to flatten the marsh, he found the development was highly asymmetrical.
Which totally shatters the assumption that they just plop down a perfect symmetrical grid all at once.
Exactly. The soil data shows the earliest, most intensive development was in the northwestern district, right along the Okawa River.
Because it was already the active port, people were already living and trading there. The imperial planners just formalized it.
Right, it was the economic heart near the water. And Sato's research points out this fascinating polarization. As the palace evolved, you had this bustling economic hub in the north and a massive new religious development in the far south around Shitanoji Temple.
So the DNA of Osaka, this division into distinct zones of power, commerce, and culture, was hard-coded into the map 1,000 years ago.
But eventually, the political center of gravity shifted inland to Nara and later Kyoto.
So does the port just wither and die when the emperor leaves?
Not at all. The imperial court left, but the port city DNA remained deeply entrenched. In the medieval period, we see the organic rise of the za.
The trade guilds.
Yes, the za were effectively trade unions or monopolies. Merchants dealing in oil, salt, or silk banded together to protect their pricing and routes.
But to enforce monopolies, they needed backing. They didn't have a king, so they turned to the gods.
Specifically, powerful religious institutions like Sumiyoshi Taisha, the paramount guardian shrine of the sea.
The shrine would grant these guilds exclusive trading rights, and in exchange, the guilds provided massive financial donations. It was a divine mafia protection racket.
It really was, and you can still see it today. If you visit Sumiyoshi Taisha, there are over 600 massive stone lanterns lining the grounds, donated by these exact merchant guilds.
With their names literally carved into the stone, a permanent ledger of their economic dominance.
This momentum just accelerates. By the Edo period, Osaka evolves from a regional port into Tenkan no Daidokuro, the kitchen of the nation.
It became the central distribution hub for the whole archipelago. We mentioned samurai being paid in rice. Well, feudal lords across the country built massive fortified storehouses called kurayashiki along the rivers.
At the city's peak, there were over 110 of these warehouses, functioning as combined storage and wholesale markets.
Which brings us to the absolute peak of Osaka's merchant ingenuity, where they effectively hack the global economy. I'm talking about the Dojima rice market.
This is a profoundly significant development in global finance. The merchants at Dojima realized that waiting for ships, unloading rice, inspecting it, and selling it was just too slow.
It was a massive bottleneck, so they decided to stop trading physical rice and start trading the idea of the rice.
They invented the promissory note based on future harvests. You could buy a slip of paper guaranteeing rice at a future date, but crucially, you could sell that paper before the date arrived.
They created a secondary market to speculate on future commodity prices. If they heard a rumor about a typhoon hitting the north, they'd buy up futures contracts knowing prices would skyrocket.
It was an incredibly sophisticated system of hedging and speculation. And the physical mechanics of the trading floor were intense.
Oh, the firebox.
Yes, the trading session was governed by a fuse. The moment that fuse burned out and the flame died, trading was instantly suspended.
The chaos on the floor in those final seconds must have been unbelievable. High-stakes financial warfare.
And our sources point out, this was the world's first formal futures trading system. They beat the Chicago Board of Trade by a full century.
It perfectly encapsulates Kamigata culture, relentlessly practical and focused on efficiency. But listen, no great RPG world is built entirely on peaceful ledgers.
True.
Every great map has a dark, cataclysmic backstory. A Dark Souls era where the world burns down and is reshaped by violence. And Osaka's history is forged in absolute fire.
The same geography that made it wealthy made it a massive military target. In the late 16th century, the Umimachi Plateau was occupied by a militant Buddhist sect.
They built Ishiyama Honganji, a fortress temple complex. And they were not peaceful monks.
Far from it. They operated as an independent militant state with armies of warrior monks controlling the trade routes of the bay.
Which the warlord Oda Nobunaga saw as a direct threat to his campaign to unify Japan.
Nobunaga laid siege to it for 10 agonizing years. A brutal war of attrition before they finally surrendered.
But the real cataclysm comes later. Toyotomi Hideyoshi takes over and builds Osaka Castle, completely re-engineering the city with moats and canals. He redraws the map.
But his dynasty was short-lived. Following his death, Tokugawa Ieyasu makes his move for absolute control, leading to the siege of Osaka in 1614 and 1615.
This is the apocalyptic final clash. Toyotomi loyalists inside the fortress, Tokugawa outside. And Tokugawa realizes he can't just throw swordsmen at strained walls.
Tokugawa understood the mechanics of war had shifted. While we romanticize the katana, he utilized overwhelming firepower. He imported European cannons and large-caliber matchlocks called dozutsu.
He didn't engage in honorable single combat, he just subjected the castle to relentless artillery bombardment.
The toll was devastating. The Ozutsu shattered the defenses, the Toyotomi clan was destroyed, the castle burned to the ground.
And Tokugawa built a new castle directly on top of the ashes, just burying his rival's legacy. The city was flattened.
But as our sources tragically outline, it wouldn't be the last time. This cycle of destruction and aggressive reconstruction defines Osaka's civic identity.
If we fast forward to the 20th century, the merchant hub had evolved into an industrial titan, the Manchester of the East.
Driven by textile manufacturing, chemical plants, heavy machinery. By 1925, Greater Osaka had 2.1 million people. It was the largest city in Japan.
But that massive industrial capacity made it a primary target during World War II. The audio guidance records and survivor testimonies from the Osaka International Peace Center give a sobering account of this.
And we need to look at the specific mechanics of this destruction. It wasn't standard bombing, it was a calculated methodology of fire.
The numbers are staggering. From March 13, 1945 until August, Osaka endured over 50 separate air raids.
The first Great Raid alone involved 274 B-29 bombers, dropping 1,733 tons of incendiary bombs.
And the engineering of these weapons is terrifying. They use the M69 incendiary cluster bomb, not meant to destroy concrete, but specifically designed against traditional wooden housing, Mashiya.
Right, the bomb would separate in midair, drop smaller pipes heavy enough to punch through clay roofing tiles.
And once inside the wooden structure, a charge would detonate, spraying napalm across the paper walls and beams.
The result was an unstoppable firestorm that sucked the oxygen out of the air. About 21 square kilometers of the city center were reduced to ashes. Over 10,000 people died.
The artifacts at the Peace Center make this unimaginable scale so personal, like the metal canteen belonging to a pregnant woman.
Yes, struck by shrapnel, but it deflected the blast just enough to save her life. Her baby was born amidst the rubble 2 months later.
It's an incredibly heavy reality. When you look at aerial photos of the Minami district in the fall of 1945 where your hotel stands today, it's just a charred desert.
Yet the most crucial part of this story is what happened the morning after the fires burned out.
The Phoenix Protocol engages.
Driven by that stubborn merchant spirit, the survivors refused to abandon the map. They cleared rubble with their bare hands, established massive black markets, traded salvaged kimonos for sweet potatoes.
They willed the city back into existence. By the 1950s, they regained pre-war economic output. By 1970, they hosted the World Expo.
So when you walk out of Hotel Coach in Saibashi, you aren't just in a fun tourist district. You're feeling a vibrant, aggressive energy. The city fundamentally refuses to die.
Which brings us to the moment of truth. Let's actually simulate your arrival. Imagine Route 1, the first night walk, or the Neon Main Quest.
Visualize this. You've checked into your efficient room. It's dusk and late March. A slight chill from the bay.
You step out of the glass doors. The sky above the narrow street is turning a deep purple. The street-level lights flicker on, and the ambient hum of the city shifts.
Your most logical first move is heading west toward the Shinsaibashi shopping street.
This massive covered arcade running parallel to the Midosuji line. It's a glowing labyrinth packed with people, high-end boutiques, cafes.
But remember the continuity. This is the unbroken evolution of ancient commerce. The kimono merchants of the Edo period slowly evolved into these modern department stores.
And as you cross the main road to the west, the vibe fractures completely. You enter a Marikamura or a Mamura.
The historic epicenter of Osaka's youth culture. In the 1970s, people started importing vintage denim and surf gear from the U.S. West Coast and selling them out of warehouses here.
It created an entire subculture. Today, it's a dense cluster of street fashion, vintage record shops, kids eating takoyaki in Triangle Park.
But your main quest marker is glowing to the south. You continue walking until the covered arcade abruptly opens up and you hit water. The Dotonbori Canal.
The visual impact is legendary, the dark water acting as a mirror for this towering wall of neon and LED signs. Pure cyberpunk.
But look at the water itself. How did a straight canal end up here?
Right, this connects back to the Dark Souls era. In 1612, a merchant named Yasui Dut realized Minami needed better infrastructure to move goods from the bay.
So he personally funded the excavation of a massive canal. But the siege of Osaka erupted, and he was killed.
But his cousin Duboku survived, finished the project in 1615, and the Tokugawa shogunate officially named it Dotonbori. Bori meaning moat or canal.
A memorial to a merchant's vision. But it's famous globally because it became the Broadway of Japan.
In 1626, urban planners mandated all theaters relocate to the southern bank of Dotonbori. They built the five massive wooden playhouses.
And the theater that dominated here was bunraku. It's not just hand puppets for kids. It's a highly complex, multi-layered dramatic art.
Break down the mechanics of bunraku for us, because it's wild.
Our sources from the Donald Keene Center explain it requires three distinct components. First, the taiyu, the chanter who provides all vocal performances and narration.
Switching pitch for every character.
Exactly. Second, the shamisen player, providing the percussive musical score that dictates pacing.
And then the puppeteers.
Yes. Around 1734, they introduced the three-man puppet system. The puppets are nearly life-sized. The master puppeteer operates the head and right arm, another operates the left arm, and a third manipulates the legs.
It requires breathtaking synchronization, three humans breathing as one to make a wooden figure convey profound human emotion.
And they performed absolute blockbusters, largely driven by playwright Chikamatsu Manzaemon.
The Eastern Shakespeare. He wrote domestic tragedies about everyday merchants and clerks.
His most famous work, The Love Suicides at Sonozaki, premiered right there on Dotonbori in 1703. It proved the struggles of the common merchant class were worthy of high art.
So standing on the Ibisabashi Bridge, overlay the past onto the present. In the 1700s, the street was packed with people weeping over wooden lovers to the twang of a shamisen.
But culture constantly evolves. By the 1920s, the Taisho era, Osaka is an industrial powerhouse, and American jazz arrives via ships from Shanghai.
The Roaring Twenties hit Minami like a tidal wave. The old tea houses turned into jazz dance halls.
Our sources highlight the Saito House near the Ibisubashi Bridge. It was one of the earliest jazz live halls.
But what happens to the Saito House site after the WWWII ashes are cleared?
It's acquired by an emerging entertainment agency called Yoshimoto Kogyo, who eventually turned it into a proving ground for young stand-up comedians.
I love that detail. The theatrical spirit never died. It just patched itself with new software, from puppets to jazz to stand-up comedy.
And the visual language evolved to match the massive, mechanized signboards of Dotonbori.
Aggressively designed to capture attention, the Glico Running Man LED sign.
The giant mechanized crab at Kani Doraku, Kudora Taru, the mechanical clown banging a drum.
The famously grumpy Kushikatsu manager sculpture warning you not to double dip, it's sensory overload.
But in a hyper-competitive merchant city, you have to shout the loudest visually to make a sale.
And what are they selling? Endless amounts of food. This introduces the core gameplay mechanic of Osaka, Kudor.
Kudor translates to eat until you drop or eat yourself into bankruptcy.
Our sources compare it to Kobe's extravagance in footwear or Kyoto's extravagance in clothing. An Osaka merchant will spend their last coin on an exceptional meal.
And we must examine why the food is so exceptional. It's a direct result of geography and those historical supply lines.
It's not just heavy, sweet, and savory brown sauce poured over fried dough.
That's a severe misrepresentation. The actual secret, the foundational operating system, is the profound subtlety of its broth, the dashi.
Let's unpack the dashi mechanics, because this is where the kitchen of the nation history impacts flavor.
Historically, Osaka had first access to the highest quality ingredients. To construct perfect dashi, they rely on kombu, dense kelp from the freezing waters of Hokkaido.
Second, dried, fermented bonito flakes from Tosa.
And third, small, dried sardines, caught locally. Osaka Bay had strong tidal currents bringing in massive schools of high-quality sardines.
Plus, the local climate produced exceptional vegetables, and the Yonagawa River provided clean, fresh water.
You combine that water with high-grade kelp and umami-rich fish flakes, and you get a philosophy of thin, refined taste and deep flavor.
Even their casual street food uses this foundation, like takoyaki, piping hot spherical dumplings made of a dashi-infused batter filled with octopus.
A fascinating detail. During rapid economic growth in 1960, a full dozen pieces of takoyaki cost a mere 30 yen.
Fast fuel for a working-class city. So visualize the end of your first night. You're full of street food, senses buzzing. You turn down a side street into Hozenji Yokocho.
A preserved pocket of the past. The ground shifts to narrow stone paving.
And situated right in the center is Hozenji Temple, home to the Mizukaki Fudo statue, an incredibly striking Buddhist statue entirely obscured by a thick blanket of green moss.
The moss grows because visitors constantly splash water over the statue while making prayers.
You stand there smelling incense, but you can still hear a pop song bleeding over from the main street, the exact intersection of ancient and modern. You head back to your hotel, HP restored.
Which logically brings us to imagined Route 2, the first morning walk.
You wake up, grab your efficient breakfast, step into the crisp March morning, and the map has completely changed.
The neon is extinguished. Delivery trucks are offloading produce. The unvarnished merchant face of the city is revealed.
We need to equip you with two essential vocabulary words. First is konbini,
The Japanese convenience store.
your ultimate frictionless supply point. Grab a cold green tea or a salmon onigiri.
The second word is ichiba, meaning market.
You navigate south, deeper into Namba, toward Kuruman Ichiba Market.
If Dotonbori is the dining room, Kuruman Ichiba is the chaotic pantry. An expansive covered arcade packed with over 150 stalls selling fresh seafood, wagyu beef, seasonal produce.
The sensory experience is phenomenal. Roasting green tea, raw ocean brine. Shopkeepers meticulously arranging displays and aggressively bantering.
And connect this back to the lore. Watching these merchants haggle, you are witnessing the unbroken behavioral continuation of the ancient Za trade guilds.
The mechanics of commerce haven't changed, just the inventory. And as you walk through Namba, you realize the people of Osaka are loud, deeply opinionated, and incredibly funny.
This introduces another core pillar. Osaka is the undisputed capital of laughter in Japan.
You'll likely pass the Namba Grand Kagetsu Theater, the modern fortress of Yoshimoto Kogyo. They institutionalize the chaotic humor of the Osaka streets.
But why is Osaka culturally predisposed to comedy?
Right. What's the psychological connection?
It leads back to merchant culture versus samurai culture. For a samurai, your optimal strategy was to be silent, stoic, and dignified.
Humor could be seen as a weakness, a lack of discipline.
Exactly. But if you're a merchant at the bottom of the social hierarchy, your literal survival depends on making a sale. You have to negotiate with strangers and build trust.
You have to break the ice.
Precisely. Humor, quick banter, self-deprecation became essential survival tools. You make a customer laugh, you disarm their defenses, and build a relationship that leads to a transaction.
It's the ultimate application of the charisma stat. They naturally maxed out their communication skills because their foundation was trade, not feudal obedience.
This is why storytelling arts like Rakugo flourished here, right alongside dashi and bunraku.
So you've absorbed the morning hustle, felt the comedic energy of Namba, and now you're mentally prepping for the main event, the March Sumo tournament.
Harubasho, hosted annually in Osaka.
And after unpacking all this lore, the atmosphere of the city makes perfect sense as the backdrop for the sport.
It's a highly synergistic pairing.
Let's think about sumo mechanics. It's a raw, physical spectacle steeped in Shinto rituals, but at its core, it's visceral and violent. Two massive athletes colliding in a small ring of packed clay.
And the audience in Osaka is notoriously passionate.
Yeah.
Very vocal, deeply emotionally invested in the drama.
A perfect match. The loud, proud energy of the city manifests in the stadium. Osaka itself has always been an arena. Warlords, firebombings, cutthroat commerce, theatrical tragedy.
When those wrestlers step onto the dohyo, the clay ring, they're stepping onto a stage much like the bunraku puppets or the merchants on the Dojima rice exchange floor. It's about high-stakes performance and raw, human endeavor.
So our mission here is accomplished. Your inventory is sorted, you are fully prepped. You know that when you swipe your keycard at Hotel Code Shinsaibashi, you aren't just entering a room with a high-tech air purifier.
You're establishing a tactical base camp precisely in the center of 1,600 years of continuous history.
Spawning into a living map that began as an imperial harbor, evolved into the headquarters of God-fearing trade guilds, invented modern futures finance, was pulverized by cannons, incinerated by napalm, and stubbornly rebuilt itself into a neon-soaked wonderland of resilience.
You understand the mechanics behind the dashi broth, the puppet masters, the incendiary bombs, and the charisma of the fast-talking merchants.
And so I want to leave you with one final provocative thought to ponder on your long flight across the Pacific. As you walk out of your starting inn, navigating the narrow yokocho of Minami, smelling grilled octopus.
Remember the physical layers beneath your boots.
That's it. You are walking on ground that was artificially raised from the sea by ancient engineers, trampled by warrior monks, flattened by artillery, scorched to white ash by bombers, and rebuilt centimeter by centimeter by people who refuse to let their city die.
Osaka is a living testament to human resilience and the power of commerce over conflict.
So when you take your seat at the sumo tournament and you feel the physical shockwave of those two giants colliding, you aren't just watching a sporting event. You are actively participating in the unstoppable, continuous heartbeat of Japan's most resilient city. Safe travels and enjoy the game.